Hey everyone, just a quick message before we start. First, I am still partnered with Logitech. Logi.gg/Datto is going to save you 10% on some Logitech purchases. Next, I am trying to be a bit more active on TikTok again. I'm trying to upload way more shorts to TikTok, so if you already happen to have TikTok and you're on there, at Datto Does Destiny is me. I got a mix of Destiny and non-Destiny clips going up. Also, be sure to check the Shorts tab on my channel here on YouTube because I do not alert subscribers to my shorts. So if you're looking for some bonus content, go check out the Shorts tab. All right, enjoy the video. At the beginning of Season of the Wish, Bungie brought back Onslaught, a perk that up until now was only on the Gambit pinnacle weapon Breakneck from what might as well be a million years ago. Breakneck itself has also returned as a weapon, and it's possible to get Onslaught on it, but because it's from Gambit and because there are 144 different major perk combinations on it, getting the roll you want is incredibly tough. Enter Ros-Arago 4, a void auto rifle of which we've been lacking in the game historically, which can roll with Onslaught. Most of the other second major column perks on this weapon aren't really that good, or at least aren't good enough to consider using over Onslaught. And the first column has both rewind rounds and subsistence, which are extremely good pairings for Onslaught, but there are also a couple of other viable options that we'll talk about. Considering that Ros-Arago is a world drop, you're probably just gonna have to deal with whatever hand you've been dealt and just build around that. I've gotten 2 of these to drop with Onslaught. Both of them happen to be with rewind rounds, so that's all I've had to work with. I've been pretty exotic primary weapon pilled for the past few months, only giving SMGs and hand cannons any attention at all in pretty much all aspects of content. It was only until I ran a master raid recently that I needed some overload rounds for, and I opted for Ros-Arago 4. And I'm not gonna lie, this thing was cooking a lot more than I was anticipating in an activity that was 20 levels above me in power level, and I also didn't have Void Surge. Onslaught increases your rate of fire after you get a kill, but doesn't reduce your damage per shot like it used to, essentially giving you a DPS increase that is better than Rampage, as Rampage is 10, 21, and 33% bonus damage, and Onslaught, I believe, is 20, 40, and 60 or 61% increased rate of fire. At maximum stacks, this thing basically turns into a trace rifle. It's shooting faster than a 900 RPM SMG. When fully dialed up, this perk launches this weapon into the upper tier for auto rifles, getting into the range of and actually beating out some exotic auto rifles in damage. Auto rifles are pretty much at the limit of what I consider an acceptable legendary primary weapon to use in upper tier content. I find pulses and scouts to essentially be irrelevant, but when Onslaught is rolling, it's a different ballgame. However, something to keep in mind is that if you go with Onslaught, this weapon will live or die because of it. If you're not keeping your Onslaught stacks up, you find it difficult to stack up, or aren't repeatedly able to replenish your stacks, you are literally just using a 600 RPM auto rifle, and I would not wish that on anybody. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be naturally glued to subsistence or rewind rounds to really go super gun mode, but there are a couple of other perks to at least consider, and those are permeability and repulsor brace. Repulsor Brace, defeating a void debuffed target gives you an overshield, gives more Titan vibes than anything else, but getting a steady flow of void debuffed targets for Titan can be difficult outside of void themed artifact seasons or outside of setups that really focus on spreading something like suppression or volatile. Hunters have a bit more to work with there with something like Falcon, but I would also argue that the Hunter gameplay style or cycle is not as overshield heavy as it is going in and out of invisibility. That's not to say it's bad to have an extra overshield or anything, but it's just a bonus to your kit as opposed to something that gives you additional benefits like a Titan does. Warlocks are kinda in the same boat as Hunters. They revolve much more around Rift play and Devour, but again, free overshields, it's not the worst thing in the world. Permeability, the class ability version of Osmosis, can turn the gun into whatever element your subclass is when you use your class ability, which gives you more flexibility with the weapon if you want to have actual subclass elemental synergy. This season, we're very solar heavy, so hopping onto a solar subclass to make sure your weapon becomes solar is a pretty nice benefit. If I'm on maybe a solar hunter with a dramatically shorter class ability cooldown than the other classes, I can turn this thing solar basically whenever I want, and if I need to swap weapons, it's not nearly as big of a deal. Even turning this into a stasis or strand weapon is viable because of all the strand and stasis special weapons being in the kinetic slot. So you could have a full stasis or strand loadout if you opt for permeability. Something like a scatter signal Arago or a riptide Arago can go pretty hard, opening up your exotic for a power weapon if that's more your thing, or just keeping it all the same element with a circular logic, machine gun, or a cold comfort rocket, whatever you want to do. Dynamic sway reduction is much more of a PvP play, but this gun has never been a PvP weapon to me. Yeah, I'm sure there are tons of crazy clips out there of people stacking Onslaught to 2 or 3 and just mowing through some people, but the odds of that happening on a regular basis are pretty low, and I'd rather just run with something else entirely if I'm going the auto rifle direction. It's fine, nothing more, nothing less. Both of these perks play more to the subclass synergy part of the game, while something like Subsistence or Rewind rounds play more towards a workhorse style weapon. You know, like the olden days when I ran around with my Outlaw Kill Clip Go figure. Subsistence synergy with Onslaught is as berserk as you could possibly get, while Rewind rounds are also fantastic. It just depends on what you are graced with. When I was playing in Master VOG with this thing, I was on a solar subclass because it was solar and stasis surge, so I didn't have the subclass synergy at all, but that didn't really stop me from just unleashing this weapon onto my enemies anyway. Workhorse weapons have kind of gone to the wayside as a result of subclass synergistic perks being introduced to the game. It's pretty rare to see these types of weapons in PvE anymore, at least compared to what we used to be seeing. I think that's why I've enjoyed Quicksilver so much. It's not only a strand weapon, so I can get some strand-based benefits, but it's a workhorse weapon. It just kills stuff, and it kills it good, and I don't need to worry about trying to synergize because that's never been the point. Ros-Aragos, to me, has been refreshing because it's the first time in a while that something other than an elemental SMG or a hand cannon has gone into my hands and has actually felt nice to use. There are a couple of other weapons that can roll with Onslaught as well, like Lethal Abundance from Trials and Marcato 45, another world drop. Lethal Abundance is strand, so that's going in the kinetic slot, which means you miss out on a strand special weapon unless you use another element shifting capable weapon, I guess. But it can come with Slice, which applies Sever to targets after using your class ability, and Sever is very, very good in endgame content. Marcato, on the other hand, it's a machine gun. I don't think I actually want Onslaught on this because machine guns aren't really a gun that I want to be firing super fast with because I want all of my shots to count. Machine guns are very good at ad clear. I'm not going to deny that, so it seems like Onslaught would be a pretty good idea. But they also generally hit hard enough that the extra speed I don't think is needed, or at least not something that I personally want. For enemy dense areas, Surrounded can be viable for a 40% damage bump. Hatchling is also not too bad of an idea now since Threadlings got buffed too. I'm not saying you can't use Onslaught. It's probably still a pretty good perk to be using on this thing, but I personally am not specifically hunting for it. But I also don't think I've even gotten one, so I haven't even had the ability to try it. Yeah, Ros-Arago, I owe you an apology. I was not familiar with your game. I blew it off completely when it first came out because I was very much of the mind that legendary primaries were cringe and exotic primaries are where it's at, even with Onslaught being back and as good as it currently is. Don't get me wrong, A lot of legendary primaries are indeed still cringe, but I was wrong about Ros-Arago being as cringe as all of the others. Again, the only unfortunate thing is that it's a world drop, so you don't really have a ton of control over getting one. You just gotta hope that it falls into your lap at some point. But if you can find one, it's something that I think you should probably hold on to. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.